In this video, we'll cover an overview of CHEQ's Tag Management System product, more commonly known as Manage. Topics will include adding the product to your page or site, the process for creating and managing tags, and user administrative control options. All in all, we'll cover how CHEQ Manage gives users the unique degree of flexibility, control, and performance that makes it a best-in-class tag manager. We'll start with an example website in order to understand both the use cases requiring a tag management system, which I'll refer to as TMS or Manage from now on, and how to deploy Manage onto your pages. The primary use case for a TMS is enabling users to deploy vendor technologies to their pages outside of the primary development cycle. This might mean you don't belong to an engineering or development team at all, and are instead part of a marketing or ad ops group. TMS products are designed to make it easier and more approachable to adding content to your site from first or third-party sources that might serve marketing, advertising, analytics, and other use cases. Furthermore, they offer a solution to satisfying those needs without having to burden an IT group or contract a third-party group who normally manages the site's implementation, security, and back-end configurations instead. When you're looking to add CHEQ's Manage product to a page or site, the first step is adding the Bootstrap file. Installing the Bootstrap into your site is as simple as adding a single line of HTML to the page. We suggest adding this directly to the page in the head section. While the Bootstrap can typically function from any section of the page, depending on the tags you intend to deploy, it may be required that this script tag is added in a synchronous manner without async or defer flags, which is required to be in the head. Scenarios requiring that sort of implementation are most common within privacy and compliance use cases, as well as A/B testing use cases. Adding the Bootstrap to the page might be something you can accomplish via your CMS, directly through HTML files, or elsewhere on your web host, depending on the system you're using. In the example here, we can see some sample fields like Client ID in the default setup and prod in the first-party setup. Client ID will be the same as your Manage account name, and prod is the name of the publish path or space, which we'll cover in detail later. You'll also notice that the domain changes between these two examples. The default uses our standard domain, nexus.insighten.com, and the first-party example uses a CNAME, which is a certificate-supported DNS record that you can set up inside the platform in order to more reliably avoid tools like ad blockers and third-party cookie blocking. Deploying the Bootstrap is the first step to not only adding vendor tags to your page, but also to more of CHEQ's product solutions such as CHEQ Enforce and CHEQ server-side tagging, which are covered in greater detail in other videos and materials. Now let's jump over to the UI for a quick tour. We'll cover the most commonly used sections of the UI and leave the more niche areas for later videos or help articles. The Tags UI is where all of the tags that have already been created live. You can modify or delete existing tags here. This is where the publish cycle takes place that we'll discuss later, and much of what you can see and act upon here is governed by user roles. Next, we have the Conditions UI. A condition is what decides what pages or websites a tag can be served to, and sometimes under what circumstances it's allowed to execute. Then we move to the Spaces UI, where we go a level higher than conditions. You can think of a space as a folder or directory for organizing and distributing tags. New accounts will start with a standard dev stage prod setup similar to what normal software development uses, but as accounts grow in size and complexity, you may find it beneficial to have multiple different prods for different sites or products. Making it easy to navigate organizational complexity and work across teams is one of CHEQ's key strengths for enterprises relative to other tag managers. Following Spaces, we have Publish Paths and Certificates, and these two are closely related to what Spaces do. Publish paths are like Spaces at a basic level, but their relationship can become more complex as your use cases grow. A publish path is more literally the file path that you use to place a Bootstrap on your site. Frequently, you'll have one space per publish path, but you can have many spaces that all deploy to the same publish path if you're looking for organization or user management options, but don't want to complicate what actually happens on the site. Certificates is where you can handle the CNAME process I mentioned earlier in the video by uploading a certificate, and then in the Publish Paths section, you choose that certificate to be used by one or more of the path options. This is what alters the domain when you're adding a Bootstrap to the page. Next, we have the Apps UI, where almost all tags begin their creation process. In the Apps UI, we host templates for a wide array of vendors across all markets and industries. This is also where handy internal tools and frameworks live, as well as the fully customizable options for when an app doesn't meet your needs or you prefer to develop the solution on your own. If you do prefer the app templates and aren't finding what you're looking for, our apps team is happy to update existing templates or build out new templates to make sure you're successful. Finally, we have the data and events UIs. These aren't necessary for tag creation or deployment, but can often become necessary depending on the complexity of your tagging needs. The data UI is where you create data definitions, which can be used inside of tags to easily access data on the page or compute data from available information. They're a great option for when your users have limited or no JavaScript familiarity, but they need to be able to get that order ID or order value off the page and into a marketing attribution tag. Events are for triggering tagging or vendor data when specific circumstances arise on a page, rather than simply on a page load. Maybe you want to send click events to your analytics platform anytime the user interacts with the login button, or maybe you only want to fire a certain tag if the user is filling out a form. These are good scenarios where an event can be used to enhance your ability to send data through various tags. Now that we've walked through each of the elements that a tag can use, let's go ahead and create one together so you can see how it's done. Back in the app screen, we'll choose one of our generic templates that assists in sending a generic pixel to any vendor. Here we can see a few open fields and the option to add any number of additional custom parameters. We'll start by giving the tag a name, and then fill in some of these fields. Most apps have at least one required field that will throw an error if left blank. Once you've filled out the app's required fields, you can proceed to step 2 of the process, where spaces, conditions, and events become relevant. We'll choose our dev space, as this is a new and untested tag. And then search for a condition that lets me fire my new tag only on the home page. These conditions do have to be created, so in a new account you won't see so many options at first. Instead of, or in addition to, conditions, this is also the spot where I could choose an event that my tag needs to wait for before executing. We could go ahead and complete our tag now, but we have one more thing to consider before wrapping up. Does our tag need any additional data? Sure, I'm going to load a pixel and send the vendor some data from the page. But did I need to include the order ID or the order value? Do I need to indicate the page name or page type? That's where data definitions become valuable. I'll back up to the configuration step and set up one of these custom parameters with a data definition I've already built for this purpose. With that in place, we're done building our example tag and we can click Save. This brings us back to the Tags UI, where our new tag has been automatically filtered for. The final process of getting a tag onto your site is known as the publish cycle. A tag needs to be enabled, committed, and published before it's going to be delivered to any pages. New tags are automatically enabled, so the next step of the process is to commit. Committing is like locking a tag. It ensures that nobody else can modify it unless uncommitted, and it tells the system that this tag is ready to be published. Publishing happens at the space level. Because our tag is already filtered for, the system will automatically select the dev space, but in other cases you may need to select it from the dropdown. We can see in this summary view everything that's ready to be published in this space. Like I said, this happens at the space level, so if other tags are in the commit state, you might see more than just your tag in this summary. You can, however, select or unselect tags that you don't intend to publish. If you do see tags here and you're not sure if they're ready to go out, you can either deselect them or check with their tag authors to see if they are ready. Publishing typically takes only a few minutes. We published this tag in our dev space, and let's say we did some testing and decided that this tag is ready for actual production as well. We can merge from the Tags UI and send it to prod. If I deselect the space filter, we'll see our newly merged prod tag. Just like when we created our new tag, this tag is not already published to a site and it needs to go through the publish cycle. There are a few more useful features throughout these UIs, like rollbacks, history, comparison, and dependencies, but these advanced topics are better to cover in the more in-depth training videos. We'll wrap up with a couple of features that aren't directly related to tag management or creation, but typically give account admins more visibility and control over their accounts. These two sections at the bottom are typically restricted to users with higher level permissions like account admins. In the reporting section, we have the tag error report, where we collect information about tags that have been failing for one reason or another so that you can diagnose and correct any issues. The page performance report covers useful performance information, but it's from the perspective of the Bootstrap and its tags, which isn't quite the same as performance monitoring on your whole site. The Users UI is where you create and manage user accounts and their roles and permissions. The Roles UI is where you define those permission sets. This can be done at a very granular level to control who has access to publishing certain content, who's able to edit, delete, and create content, and who's able to manipulate other sections of the UI like conditions and data definitions. Ultimately, tags can be very powerful tools, so it's a good idea to know and trust what's being sent into production. The System Security section is where you'll find configuration tools for single sign-on and security restrictions. That wraps up this TMS overview video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.